All right, so lesson 8 is now solving two-step inequalities. So again, we're still dealing with our inequalities: less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to. Okay, we have an open circle when we're graphing, or we have a closed circle when we're graphing. Okay, we solve these just like any equation. The only difference, though, because we're dealing with inequalities, if we're multiplying or dividing by a negative, we flip the inequality. Okay, so that's the only difference with inequalities, and we practiced that in lesson 7, but we do need to remember it when we're dealing with two-step equations, because we're going to have to be multiplying and dividing somewhere in the equation. Okay, but please remember that it only happens for multiplying and dividing. Okay. All right, so let's look at some examples. Okay, so you can see here, they've subtracted by 4, then they divided by 3 and got their answer, and then they graphed it. Okay, and so remember, the only time that you multiply or divide first is if there's parentheses, and so we have no parentheses, so we're going to always add or subtract first before we do anything. Okay, you can see another example. See, they subtracted 5 first, then they divided by the 4 to get the answer. Okay. All right, so let's look at an example ourselves. So 2x plus 8 is greater than 24. Okay, so remember, we do not touch our variable until we get rid of that positive 8. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. So now we have 2x is greater than 16. Then we can divide by 2. And so we get x is greater than 8. Okay, see how I didn't touch the inequality or anything because there were no negatives being multiplied or divided. Then we graph that. Here's 8, negative infinity to the left, positive infinity to the right, open circle, okay, because it's just greater than, and it goes to the right because we need numbers bigger. Okay. All right, so take a look here. They subtracted 7, that's fine. But then what happens? They have to divide by a negative, and so you can see right here is where they flipped the inequality because of that negative. So now we're no longer greater, now we're less than, and our answer is -2. So they put the open circle, and now they're less than. So be very, very careful with your negatives. Okay, here they've added 5. Then they multiplied by 2. Nothing happened to your inequality because it's positive. Open circle, less than. Okay. Okay, so let's look at some more examples here. So we have x over 2 plus 9 is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so hold on to your variable till we get rid of that positive 9. So let's subtract 9. So we get x over 2 is greater than or equal to, 5 is positive, 9 is negative. We subtract, and we get -4. If you use your calculator with that, put it in exactly the way you see it, and you'll get the right answer. 5 take away 9, and there's your -4. Okay, so you can always use your calculator if you don't want to use your teacher. All right, so because this is a division problem, we are going to multiply. And see how we multiplied by a positive? That means our inequality stays the same. Okay, it's the number that we're actually writing on both sides that we look at. Yes, this has a negative, but that's not the number that we took to the other side, right? We took the 2 to the other side. So our answer is -8, but nothing had to happen to our inequality. All right, so here's -8, negative infinity, positive infinity. We are a closed circle because it is equal to, and x is greater, so we've got to go towards our positives. Okay, let's look at letter C. 8 take away x over 3, less than or equal to 7. All right, so we're not going to touch that variable till we get rid of this +8. So we're going to subtract 8 from both sides. Use your T-chart or your calculator. So we get that we have, -1. Oh, that's very hard to see. -1. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so now what are we going to do? This is a division problem, so we're going to multiply. What's over here? The 3 and the negative. So the -3 is what we're doing. Uh-oh. I dealt with a negative, so that means my inequality needs to flip. So now it's greater than or equal to. These 3's are gone, leaving me with my x. A negative times a negative is a positive, and 1 times 3 is 3. Then we graph our information. 3 is in the middle. We have negative infinity. We have positive infinity. We're going to have a closed circle because it's equal to, and it's greater than, so it's got to go towards our positive. Okay. Let's look at number 2 just because it's written that backwards way. All right, so we're going to hold off on our variable until we get rid of that 7. Okay, it's positive, so we're going to subtract 7 to both sides. So we get 4 is less than or equal to x over 5. It's a division problem, so we're going to multiply by 5. And so we get 20 is less than x, less than or equal to x. But remember, we want to flip that around. So x, it's on the bigger side. So we have to move that inequality that way. And so we have 20, or x is greater than or equal to 20. Graph that information. Negative infinity to the left, positive infinity to the right, closed circle because it's equal to, and it's greater than, so it's to the right.